The lights of Manhattan shimmered through the tall windows of the Gotham Conference Hall. Inside, rows of elegantly dressed attendees sat in silence, all eyes fixed on the grand stage. A young woman stood behind the podium, her hand steadying the stack of papers she was about to read from. Her name was Alina Carter. A public speaking coach by profession, she had spent years helping others find their voice. But tonight was different. This time, it was her own story she was about to tell. As the keynote speaker at the Empower Voices Summit, Alina had prepared a heartfelt talk on resilience. It was her most personal speech yet. She spoke of loss, of learning to trust again, of standing up after being broken. Her words moved through the hall like a gentle current, drawing nods, gasps, and even tears from the crowd. Among the audience, in the second row, sat her teenage daughter, Lily. With her arms folded across her lap, she looked up at her mother with quiet admiration. Next to her was Peter Lane, Alina's fiancé and a well-known entrepreneur in the city. He smiled proudly, holding her hand. The moment the final word left Alina's lips, the room erupted in applause. She bowed her head with gratitude and stepped off the stage. Her heart was still racing, but the rush of accomplishment washed over her like a wave. Backstage, Lily threw her arms around her. "You did amazing, Mum," she whispered. Before Alina could respond, a man in a gray suit approached them. His face was unfamiliar, but his badge identified him as part of the venue staff. "Miss Carter, excuse me," he said in a low voice. "There's something you need to see." Alina followed him down a narrow hallway lined with storage doors. Her heels clicked on the concrete floor as she walked. The man stopped in front of a security office and gestured for her to enter. On the screen inside, a grainy security feed showed a figure sneaking backstage before her speech began. The timestamp read 20 minutes before the event started. The man was tall, wearing a hoodie, and he lingered near the dressing rooms longer than someone should. Alina frowned. "Who is that?" she asked. The security guard shook his head. "We're not sure yet, but it looks like he left something behind." Her throat tightened. "Left something? In your dressing room?" The air grew colder. Alina turned and rushed back down the hallway, heart pounding harder with every step. When she reached her dressing room, the door was ajar. Inside, everything looked undisturbed at first glance. Then she saw it. A single envelope on the table, marked only with her name. Alina picked it up with trembling fingers. The paper was thick and smooth. She opened it slowly. Inside was a photograph of Lily, taken from outside their apartment window. The city around her disappeared in a rush of panic. Something was wrong. Something was coming. And it had started the moment her speech ended. Alina's hands trembled as she clutched the photograph. The edges curled slightly from her grip. Her mind raced through every possible explanation, but none made sense. How had someone taken this? When? And why deliver it tonight? She shoved the envelope into her coat pocket and turned to the guard. "Has anyone checked the cameras outside the building?" she asked. He hesitated. "We're reviewing them now." But the feed cuts out for a few minutes before the figure entered backstage. "We think it might have been jammed." Jammed. That word sank like a stone in her chest. This wasn't just someone sneaking in. It was planned. Alina forced herself to stay calm. She had to think clearly. Lily. She had to get back to Lily. She returned to the main hall just as the after-event mingling began. Waiters floated between guests with champagne and hors d'oeuvres, while laughter and praise filled the air. Peter spotted her from across the room and walked over with Lily. "There you are," he said. "You disappeared." Alina placed a gentle hand on Lily's back and smiled tightly. "I needed a moment to myself," she said. "Too many emotions." Peter nodded, placing an arm around her shoulders. "You deserve it. That speech will be remembered. People are already quoting you." But Alina's smile was thin. She kept Lily close to her side. Her mind replayed the image from the photo again and again. The angle, the curtains. Someone had been watching them from outside their flat. She pulled Lily a little closer. "Can we go home soon?" Peter raised a brow. "Already? We're supposed to stay for the donor dinner. You know how important I don't feel right, she interrupted, voice calm but firm. Let's go. Please. Peter looked at her more closely now, then nodded slowly.
All right.
Let me get our coats. As he walked away, Alina bent to Lily's ear. Sweetheart, did you notice anything strange at home lately? Anyone outside? Anyone watching the building? Lily shrugged.
No.
I mean, maybe someone standing across the street yesterday. But I thought it was just a delivery guy. Alina's stomach twisted. They left the venue swiftly. Peter called for the car, and soon they were riding through the cold Manhattan night. Skyscrapers loomed like silent sentries as they drove past Central Park. Alina stared out the window, her reflection ghosting across the glass. Then something caught her eye. A black SUV. It had appeared 3 turns ago. Same shape. Same tinted windows. Still behind them. She leaned forward. Driver, take the next right.
Now.
The man obeyed, glancing up in the rear-view mirror. Peter frowned. What's going on? I think we're being followed, she said. The car turned sharply. The SUV turned too. Alina's breath hitched. We need to go somewhere safe. Not home. Not yet. Peter was silent for a second, then pulled out his phone. I know a place, he said. Private.
Secure.
My penthouse at Hudson Heights. Lily looked between them, now fully alert. Mom, what's happening? Alina didn't answer.
Not yet.
Not until she knew exactly what kind of threat they were facing. But in her heart, she knew this was no random intrusion. This was personal, and it had only just begun. The elevator doors opened with a soft chime. They stepped into the private lobby of Peter's penthouse, where sleek marble floors and wall-length windows framed the glittering lights of Manhattan. Peter keyed in a code at the door. A quiet click sounded as the lock disengaged, and they stepped inside. Lily clutched her mother's hand. Her usual curiosity about the luxurious flat was subdued by the tension humming in the air. Peter locked the door behind them, then pulled a panel from the wall to activate the security system. This place is reinforced, he said. Steel core doors, shatterproof glass, private lift. Cameras in every corridor. Alina gave a single nod. Her mind still raced, replaying every detail. The photo, the jammed cameras, the SUV. She sat Lily on the large leather sofa and crouched in front of her. I need you to be brave, sweetheart. Someone is bothering us, but we'll keep you safe. I promise. Lily blinked at her, nodding slowly. I trust you. Peter joined her in the kitchen, pouring a glass of water. Do you want to tell me what's really going on? Alina reached into her coat and handed him the envelope. He slid the photo out and froze. Who took this? He asked. I don't know. It was left in my dressing room. There were no prints. Just this. Peter studied it closely. It's recent. Look, the paper Lily was drawing. That's from last week. Alina exhaled. Then whoever it was, they've been watching our flat. Maybe for a while. Peter looked grim. This isn't just some paparazzi stalker. Someone went through a lot of trouble. Alina walked over to the window, arms crossed. I've made a few enemies.
Debates. Protests.
But nothing like this. Peter paused. There was that fundraiser last month, the one where you called out the city officials for their cover-ups. Alina's face tightened. You think this is political? I think it's possible. They were interrupted by a soft ding. Peter's phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. He picked it up, then turned pale. What is it? Alina asked. He held the screen up to her. A message with no number. Just a single photo. This time it was Lily, sitting on the school steps. Alone. Alina staggered back. That's from this morning. This morning. The caption underneath chilled her to the bone. You speak again. She disappears. Silence filled the penthouse, thick and pressing. Peter muttered a curse under his breath and locked his phone. They're serious. This is not a warning. It's a threat. Alina felt her world tilt. Every breath took effort. I need to find out who's behind this. And I need to disappear before they act. Peter looked at her. Disappear where? I don't know yet. But I'm not waiting to find out how far they're willing to go. She walked to the large bedroom, where Lily had already curled up under a blanket. Alina brushed her daughter's hair away from her forehead. The night outside was still. Too still. She wasn't sure what tomorrow would bring. But tonight, she would not sleep. By morning, the city stirred back to life. But in the penthouse, the tension lingered like fog on a cold glass window. Alina sat at the breakfast table, her laptop open, fingers flying across the keyboard. Peter paced nearby, coffee in hand, phone pressed to his ear. "I've called in a favor," he said. "A friend in cyber investigations. He'll look into the messages. Try to trace them." Alina didn't respond. Her screen was filled with lines of code and hidden links. She was deep inside the city's online registry, a place few people even knew existed. "I'm going to find a trace," she said quietly. "They may have scrubbed everything, but no one's perfect." Peter watched her work, impressed but wary. "You really think the city database might hold something?" "Not the public one," she said. "The internal version. The one that logs surveillance and private feeds." Peter frowned. "Alina, that's illegal." "So is stalking a child," she snapped, not looking up. "If they're using city cameras to track us, I'll know." Just then, her eyes widened. A thread had unraveled. "Got you." She clicked through a set of timestamps. Camera feeds from around her flat. Deleted, but not completely. One file had a restoration log. Someone had deleted footage from 3 nights ago, exactly when Lily had complained about the man with the shiny shoes. Alina leaned forward. The deletion had been accessed using credentials from an NYPD server. "Peter," she said, her voice thin, "someone inside the force is cleaning up for them." Peter looked at her, stunned. "You think a cop is involved?" "I think someone powerful has access. And they're not working alone." She clicked again. A new window opened. This time, a list of digital footprints. Someone had used a masked IP address to watch her security feeds at home. "Look at this. They've been watching us for weeks. Every time we leave. Every light we turn off. They know when we sleep." Peter sat down slowly. "This isn't just political anymore." Alina nodded. "It's personal." A sudden knock at the penthouse door made them both jump. Peter rushed to the door panel, switching to camera view. A woman stood there. Late 40s.
Blonde.
Neatly dressed. She held up a badge to the camera. "NYPD," Peter muttered. "Detective Marlowe." "She's not scheduled," Alina said. "I know the precinct list." The intercom buzzed. A voice came through, calm but firm. "Miss Kessler, I'm here about a threat made to your daughter. May I come in?"
Peter hesitated.
Alina moved towards the door. "Let her in." The door opened. Detective Marlowe stepped in with quiet authority. Her eyes were sharp, scanning the flat, landing briefly on Lily, who peeked from the hallway. "I need to speak with you privately," Marlowe said. Peter and Alina exchanged a glance. She nodded. They moved to the study. Once the door closed, Marlowe pulled a slim folder from her coat. "We intercepted a message from an encrypted phone. It mentions your name. And your daughter." Alina's breath caught. The message, Marlowe continued, was flagged because it used a term found in known trafficking code. Alina's legs nearly buckled. "What term?" she asked. "Clean delivery," Marlowe said. "It's used to describe a child being handed over without witnesses." Alina's voice broke. No, this can't be real." Marlowe placed the folder on the table. "I believe someone is targeting your daughter for more than just leverage. I believe you're in the middle of something far darker." Alina looked up. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because," Marlowe said, "I was taken off the case 2 weeks ago without explanation. Now I'm working off the books." She lowered her voice. "Someone wants this buried. I'm not letting that happen." Alina stared at her, hope warring with dread. If what the detective said was true, they were in a nightmare far worse than they had imagined. The next few hours passed in a blur of urgency and cold calculation. Marlowe stayed, combing through Alina's logs and Peter's phone records. Lily, unaware of the storm around her, curled up on the sofa with her drawing book, humming softly. She's being watched through systems only a few people could access, Alina muttered, scanning another log. This isn't someone outside the city. This is internal. Marlowe nodded. Which is why we need to go outside it. Peter raised a brow. What does that mean? It means, Marlowe said, there's a girl in Queens. Name's Kyra. 14. Disappeared 6 months ago. Reappeared last week. Said she escaped something, but the reports were suppressed. I think she knows who's behind this. Do you trust her? Alina asked. Marlowe hesitated. I trust what they try to hide. Later that afternoon, they took a discreet car to a rundown building in Long Island City. Graffiti covered the brick walls. The hall smelled of damp wood and cigarettes. Marlowe led them to the second floor, apartment 2C. She knocked twice, then once more, softly. A latch slid open. The door creaked inward. A small figure stood behind it, a girl with sharp eyes, wearing an oversized red hoodie and clutching a toy bear. Kyra, Marlowe said gently. It's me. The girl nodded, stepping aside. Once inside, Kyra eyed Alina with suspicion. Who's she? She's the reason I'm here, Marlowe said. Her daughter might be next. Kyra said nothing. Her gaze flicked to Lily, who stood quietly behind Peter, her small hand gripping his coat. Kyra's face changed. Something like recognition flickered. She's seen them, Kyra said softly. They watch from the street. Always shiny shoes. Always chewing gum. They don't talk, just nod to each other. Peter leaned forward. You saw where they took the others? Kyra nodded, slowly. Underground. Not subway.
Deeper.
Old tunnels near Grand Central. Smells like oil and bleach. Alina felt her heart freeze. Why were you taken? She asked. Kyra sat down, pulling the hoodie closer. I don't know. Maybe because no one would come for me. I was just another runaway. Her voice cracked. They told me I was lucky, that I'd get a new home. A rich one. Alina clenched her fists. And you escaped? Kyra smiled. A dark, crooked smile. I broke a nose and jumped into a sewer. Marlowe touched her shoulder. We'll keep you safe now. But Kyra shook her head. They'll come. They always do. If you're looking into them, you're already on the list. Outside, the wind howled through broken window panes. Peter turned to Alina. We have to go to those tunnels. If they're using the old infrastructure? Alina nodded. I can pull the blueprints. I used to write about city development. There are layers no one remembers. Marlowe stepped between them. Then we move fast. Before they know we're closing in. But Kyra's voice interrupted. They already know. I saw the man again. This morning. Outside the bodega. Watching me. Alina's stomach sank. Lily tugged her sleeve. Mummy, she whispered. Was he wearing shiny shoes? Alina didn't answer. Her eyes were locked on the window. Because outside, across the street, a man stood under the flickering lamp. Black coat, gum chewing, and shoes that gleamed in the rain. Alina barely slept that night. The sight of the man under the street lamp haunted her. Not because he had done anything, but because he had not. He simply stood there, watching, waiting, as if time belonged to him, as if he already knew what would happen next. At dawn, she brewed strong coffee and spread out the old development maps across her kitchen table. The others gathered around, bleary-eyed but alert. Marlowe stood with his arms crossed, Kyra curled in a blanket, Lily still asleep upstairs. Peter pointed at one of the diagrams.
Here.
Under Grand Central. These are the maintenance tunnels. But this part, he tapped the faded corner. This was sealed in the 70s. Alina nodded, but not forgotten. Some sections were left intact for emergency access during the war. I wrote about them once, in an article that never got published. Why not? Marlowe asked. Alina glanced at him. Because the city officials who approved the plans vanished, and the editor who greenlit my story got a new job in Chicago. Kyra studied the map. That's where I came out. Near that intersection. The storm drain. I remember the smell. Paint thinner and rust. Peter marked it with a pen. Then we trace it back. See where it leads. They split up. Alina and Peter took the city archives downtown. Marlowe returned to his contacts in the precinct. Kyra stayed with a trusted neighbor of Marlowe's, a retired teacher who had no digital footprint. Lily stayed with her. The archives were cold and dim, tucked beneath a library that barely had working heat. As they moved through file cabinets and microfilm reels, Peter whispered, "What if this is bigger than we think?" Alina didn't answer. She had already decided that it was. An hour later, she found it. A set of diagrams from 1953, stamped Civic Contingency Plan, with areas of the tunnel system marked for relocation in case of civil upheaval. The location matched Kyra's description. A narrow section beneath the East River, once used for telecommunications cables, now rerouted and forgotten. They could hide dozens there, Alina whispered. Maybe more. Peter checked the routing. And there's only one way in or out. They met Marlowe outside just after midday. He looked grim. They've already cleaned the site near the bodega. No sign of the man. But we intercepted chatter about a transfer planned for tonight. Alina's pulse quickened. What kind of transfer? Children, Marlowe said. They didn't say how many. They returned home, silent and tense. Lily greeted them with a drawing in hand. A tunnel, dark, curving downward. And in the center, drawn in red crayon, a figure standing with no face. Kyra looked at it and stepped back. That's him, she whispered. That's the one who spoke to me. Not the Watchers. The one behind them. Peter knelt. Do you know where he is? Kyra looked at Lily.
No.
But she does. She sees him in dreams. Alina's hands trembled slightly as she reached for her daughter. Lily nodded slowly. He said I would visit soon. That he was building a place for special children. Outside, the air was thick with clouds, the sky turning gray. Marlowe holstered his sidearm. We move tonight. Alina's voice was steady. Then we bring them home. But no one noticed Lily's drawing had changed. Now there were more figures. In the tunnel, waiting. The night fell heavy. Manhattan's lights blinked through a thin fog, but below the streets, a darker world waited. Alina gripped the flashlight tighter as she led the way through the storm drain entrance. Peter followed, his rucksack filled with tools and printed maps. Marlowe came last, his eyes scanning every shadow, weapon drawn and silent. They had left Lily with the neighbor again. Kyra had insisted on coming. She knew the turns, the smells, the sounds. No one spoke for the first 10 minutes. The tunnel was narrow and slick, the walls lined with corroded metal and dripping moss. The smell of old paint and chemical waste made them cover their mouths. Finally, Kyra paused. She pointed at a junction up ahead. Left, she whispered. He brought me that way. Marlowe signaled silently. They advanced. After 2 more turns, the space widened. They stepped into what once might have been a telecommunications hub, long abandoned, filled with rusted racks and coils of unused cable. But the ground had been cleared. Recently.
Footprints.
Small ones. Children's shoes. Dozens. Alina's breath caught. She knelt and touched one near the edge of the room. Still fresh. Still damp. Peter examined the ceiling. Fresh wiring. Someone's running power down here. See that conduit? That's new. They followed the line deeper. The hum of machinery became audible, distant, pulsing like a heartbeat. Then voices. Not many. Just 2.
Low, measured.
Marlowe gestured for them to stop. He crept forward, keeping to the shadows. Alina turned to Kyra. Her face was pale. That's where he took me. Past the blue door. There it was, painted a dull blue, half-rotted, but reinforced with a steel frame. Marlowe returned quickly.
2 guards.
Both armed. Watching a hallway that slopes down. We can't take them quietly. Alina looked down at her hands. She had never held a gun. But she had held Lily as she screamed. That was enough. We don't need to take them, Peter said. We distract them. He reached into his bag and pulled out a compact speaker. With a few taps on his phone, He set a loop of metallic clanging sounds and voices echoing, recordings from earlier in the tunnels. He slid the speaker into a pipe crevice and set it to play 10 seconds later. The sound echoed, amplified by the tunnel's shape. The guards immediately responded. One moved down the corridor to investigate. The other followed after a sharp whistle. The moment their footsteps faded, Marlowe opened the blue door. Beyond it, a world none of them were prepared for awaited. A wide chamber lit by rows of dim industrial lights. Rows of bunk beds. Crates of supplies. And children. At least 20, sitting silently, eyes hollow. All wearing the same gray clothing. They turned to the intruders with slow, mechanical movements. Kyra's voice trembled. They were like this when I woke up.
Calm.
Too calm. Alina stepped forward. It's all right. We're here to take you home. A few children blinked. One stood. Then a door slammed from the far end of the chamber. The figure appeared.
Tall.
Unremarkable. No uniform. Just a man in a wool coat and gloves. He did not raise his voice. You should not be here. Marlowe raised his gun. Step aside. The man looked at him, then at the children. They belong to us now. They see the truth. Soon your daughter will too. Alina stepped forward. You will not touch her. The man smiled.
Calm.
Collected. You brought her this far, Miss Shore. She's closer than ever. Before anyone could react, the lights flickered. The children began to hum. In perfect unison. A low, vibrating sound that filled the room. Peter clutched his ears. What the hell is this? Marlowe took a step, fired. The bullet passed through the man's shoulder. He did not flinch. He only smiled wider. You came too late. The hum grew louder. And the ground began to shake. The hum deepened into a tremor, vibrating through their bones. Light bulbs flickered madly, casting erratic shadows across the walls. Alina staggered back, shielding her eyes. The children were still humming, their faces blank, eyes glowing faintly silver under the buzzing lights. Peter stumbled to the control panel in the far corner, frantically pulling wires. We have to stop the signal. Something's triggering them. It's not natural. The man in the coat remained standing, the bullet wound in his shoulder still leaking, yet he did not bleed like a normal man. The flow was slow, almost deliberate. Black.
Thick.
Kyra stood still, frozen in place. Her lips trembled. That's what they made us do. Hum. Until everything went white. Marlowe pulled Alina close. We need to move.
Now.
But Alina didn't budge. Her eyes were locked on the children, especially one. A girl, barely 8, with curly hair and a birthmark above her right brow. It was Lily, her daughter. She stood among the others, humming. No, Alina breathed. No, no, no. She rushed forward. Marlowe reached out to stop her, but she was too fast. Lily, it's me. It's Mummy. The girl blinked, the hum caught in her throat. She stepped forward, sluggish, as though her body moved against invisible threads. Alina knelt. Come back to me. You're not like them. You are strong. You are my daughter. Lily's lip twitched. Behind them, the man in the coat moved his hand. A gesture, almost imperceptible. Lily's eyes suddenly snapped shut. Then she screamed. A piercing, unnatural shriek that knocked over a row of bunks and sent Peter sprawling. Alina screamed with her, clutching her tightly. The humming ceased. All at once. The children collapsed where they stood, unconscious or asleep. The man's expression changed. For the first time, confusion. Then frustration. You interrupted the link, he muttered. Marlowe seized the moment and fired again. This time, the bullet struck the man's leg. He buckled. Peter, recovering quickly, slammed the remaining control switches. Sparks flew, and with a loud crack, the lights shattered. Total darkness followed. Move, he shouted. Marlowe grabbed 2 of the nearest children and flung one over each shoulder. Alina held Lily in her arms, her body limp but breathing. They ran. Back through the blue door. Through the maze of tunnels. Kyra led the way, her memory sharp even in the pitch black. Behind them, a scream echoed. Not a child's scream. Something deeper. Something not human. It chased them through the corridors. The tunnel began to collapse, metal groaning and concrete crumbling. They burst through the final grate just as it slammed shut behind them, sealing off the nightmare below. Alina fell to her knees, Lily still in her arms. The girl stirred. Her eyes opened. "Mummy," she whispered. Alina sobbed, clutching her tightly. Peter and Marlowe lay back, gasping, covered in grime and blood. Kyra was silent, looking down into the darkness from which they had emerged. Then she spoke, her voice barely audible. "He's still down there. And he's not finished." The night air was cold against their skin, but it didn't seem to matter. They had escaped, yet the terror followed them like an invisible storm. Alina held Lily close, her heart still pounding in her chest. The girl's small hands clung to her, as if afraid to let go. "We're safe now, sweetheart," Alina whispered, trying to soothe her trembling daughter. But Alina's words felt hollow in her own ears. She could still hear the screams echoing in her mind, the horrors of what they had left behind. Peter and Marlowe stood apart, staring into the dark horizon. Kyra was by the wrecked gate, her eyes scanning the night as though waiting for something or someone. "There's nothing out there," Peter muttered, his hand resting on his pistol. "We've left it all behind." "Not everything," Kyra replied quietly, her gaze never leaving the distance. "He's still out there. The man in the coat." Marlowe's jaw tightened. "He won't stop until he gets what he wants." They had all seen the strange creature that had pursued them through the tunnels, something more than human, more than anything they could understand. Whatever it was still hunting them. Alina's mind raced. What did he want? What was the point of all this? Why had he targeted Lily? Why did the children hum? "We need to figure out what we're dealing with," Peter said, moving toward Kyra. "And fast. The longer we stay out here, the more likely he is to catch up." Alina shook her head, her thoughts in a haze. She had to protect Lily. There was no way she could go back, no way she could let that man hurt her daughter again. "We can't go back," she said quietly, looking at the others. "We need to find a place to hide. Somewhere safe." "We'll keep moving," Marlowe said, determination in his eyes. "We can't stop yet." The others nodded in agreement, though none of them spoke. They began walking in the direction of the nearby town. There had to be shelter somewhere, somewhere away from the nightmare they had just escaped. But as they walked, Alina's thoughts were consumed with one question. What was the man in the coat? What did he want with Lily? And how could they possibly stop him before he finished what he had started? Hours passed, and the town finally came into view, a faint glow in the distance. But the closer they got, the more they realized something was wrong. There were no sounds, no cars, no lights. It was as though the entire town had been wiped off the map. Marlowe led the group cautiously toward the edge of town, his hand on his weapon. "This doesn't feel right," he muttered. Kyra stayed ahead, her senses sharp. "That's because it's not right," she said, her voice a low growl. "He's already here." Suddenly, a distant scream echoed through the night, a shrill, familiar sound that sent chills down their spines. It was a child's scream. Lily's face went pale, her small body trembling in Alina's arms. "We need to move," Peter urged.
"Now."
They broke into a sprint, rushing toward the heart of the town, but as they reached the first street, they stopped dead in their tracks. The entire town was empty. Houses stood like hollow shells, windows shattered, doors left ajar. It was a ghost town, a place wiped clean. And at the center, standing alone in the middle of the street, was the man in the coat. He was waiting for them. The man in the coat stood motionless in the middle of the deserted street, his back to them, as though he knew they were coming. His long coat fluttered in the cold breeze, the darkness around him seeming to grow deeper with every passing second. Alina's heart raced as she clutched Lily tighter, her protective instincts flaring. Her eyes darted between the man and the others, trying to make sense of what was happening. "Stay close," Marlowe whispered, his voice steady but tense. Peter gripped his weapon, ready to move. Kyra's eyes narrowed, her hand resting on the hilt of her blade. "We don't have much time," Kyra said, her voice low and dangerous. "This ends now." The man finally turned around, his face hidden beneath the shadows of his hood. But there was no mistaking the malevolent energy that radiated from him. The air around them seemed to crackle with something unholy. "You've taken everything from me," the man's voice echoed, low and haunting. Alina's blood ran cold. The voice was familiar. It was the voice of the man who had hunted them, the one who had made them all run and hide. "I've taken nothing," Alina said, stepping forward. "It's you who has taken everything. What do you want with my daughter?" The man let out a cold laugh, his head tilting slightly, as if mocking her. "Your daughter?" He stepped closer, his voice dripping with venom. "She is the key. She has always been the key." Alina felt her knees weaken, but she held her ground. "The key to what?" "To a world you cannot imagine," the man said. "A world of power, of endless darkness. She hums because she is a part of it. You could never understand." Lily's face was pale, her small hands shaking in Alina's grip. She looked up at her mother, fear and confusion in her eyes. "What do you mean?" Lily whispered, her voice trembling. The man's smile was cruel. "You are the chosen one, child. The one who will bring forth the new order. All of this is because of you." "No," Alina shouted, stepping in front of Lily, blocking her from the man's gaze. "I won't let you have her." The air grew colder, and the shadows around them seemed to stretch and move, swirling with an unnatural energy. The man in the coat raised his hand, and the ground beneath them began to tremble. "Do not defy me," he warned, his voice dark and commanding. "You cannot stop what is coming. It is inevitable." Marlowe stepped forward, raising his weapon, his eyes locked on the man. "We won't let you take her. Not today." Peter and Kyra moved into position, flanking Alina and Lily, ready for whatever came next. "Then you will die for her," the man hissed. Suddenly, the world seemed to shift, the air thick with an unnatural weight. Alina felt a force tug at her, pulling her toward the man. Her heart raced as she struggled to hold onto Lily, but the force was too strong. "Hold on," Marlowe shouted, reaching for her. But it was too late. With one final surge of power, the man in the coat extended his hand, and the world seemed to explode in a burst of light and darkness. For a moment, everything was silent. And then, the ground cracked open beneath them, and they were falling, plunging into an abyss that seemed to stretch on forever. Lily screamed, her voice piercing the darkness. Alina reached for her, but the force of the fall was too great. Everything around them was chaos, swirling in an endless void. "Alina!" Peter's voice echoed through the void. And then, everything went black.